presentation, Dr. Arpita.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. So are you able to see it full screen?
No, you haven't made it full screen yet, I think, Arpita.
Oh, okay. Yes, now?
Yes. Okay. Okay, I think we can then start off. So good morning to you all. Good morning to you all once again, and welcome to the webinar Communicating Effectively by Dr. Arpita. I will now hand it over to Irfana, who will introduce Dr. Arpita and then get you all started. So Irfana, please go ahead.
Yes, good morning everyone and welcome to our webinar, and thank you very much for making time to join us. And so our webinar, as you know, is called Effective Communications, and our speaker is Dr. Arpita Datta, who is a HR professional and learning and development professional with more than 18 plus years of experience in HR and leadership development, and also employee engagement, performance management, and talent management practices. Her passion is skill development projects, which help bringing in transformational changes across different organizations. And she has created web-based content for a premier university that benefited over 2 lakh students across the country. And she was also the adjunct professor for Manipal University and Sikkim Manipal University for postgraduate management students and working professionals. And she has also worked for companies like Schneider Electric Software and division of Motorola as well. And incidentally, she is an engineer from Information and Electronics Department and
Instrumentation and Electronics.
Kolkata. Oh, okay. Sorry about that. So I'll hand it over to Dr. Arpita, and she will take us through today's training session. Enjoy, everybody. I hope you find it useful. Thank you.
Thank you, Irfana. It was a wonderful briefing about my profile. And thank you, Mr. Mohandas, as well, for bringing me in and giving me this opportunity to share my experience, I would say, because 18 plus years of career, lot of learnings for me too, and still learning, right? So this is a wonderful platform now that, we are in a lockdown situation. Yes, we have to fully make use of the digital platform and share, learn, and keep learning. Okay, so that's my motto. So moving forward, as you are aware, the discussion, I'm audible, right?
Yes.
Okay. So the discussion topic, I would say discussion topic would be communicating effectively. And this is what we will cover in the next 1.5 hours that we have. So communication model and the channels of communication. I mean, we know what is communication, but we will delve details into how we can make it more effective and meaningful for ourselves as well as our, the associates, the stakeholders. Okay, both setup, community setup, of course, back as well, right? The next topic of discussion would be barriers to effective communication. This is more about the self-awareness because that's where it all starts. Semantic barriers also is some area in details with some activity that we will delve with. Key elements in effective communication. There are certain really practical tips, easy to practice. That's why you will see when I discuss, it will be mentioned as 3P. P is nothing but practice, practice, and practice. That's why 3P. So the tips that I'm going to share a little towards the end of this particular webinar are very easy to practice. Just a little bit of discipline would be required from our side. And once we keep it rolling, it will be a cakewalk for all of us. And it will actually help us long term, right? So these are practical tips, and of course we will have activities. I have actually, listed down some 5 activities, 4 to 5 activities that we are planning to have. But I would request your participation to make it even more fruitful, right? So this is what is the coverage for the next 1.5. So is this a session?
Oh,
Do is
your voice is not very audible, Arpita. We can't hear you.
hello?
We couldn't hear you.
Is it?
No.
But we can see you, so I think it's something to do with your mic, Arpita. It's not your connection.
ಇಲ್ಲ ವಾಲ್ಯೂಮ್ ಇಲ್ಲ ಇಲ್ಲ
When Ifana, I lost some of the sentences that you mentioned just a while back. Am I audible?
Still not clear.
Dr. Arpita, maybe you can remove the video, there you can improve the bandwidth maybe.
Yes, that's what I was thinking.
But what I felt, your video is quite okay. So I feel it's something to do with your mic rather
No,
than
I
the
am
connection.
You just
I'm getting
remove
an
the video.
internet. I'm getting a message on my screen, poor connection. So I think.
Okay. Maybe you can, we
so
can
I
try
think I
switch
have
off your
to
video because anyway
stop
your
the-
screen is there. Yeah.
Yeah, is it?
No. No, we can't hear you.
The video is still on, Dr. Arpita, or you are switched off?
No. Video is off, actually.
Yes.
Yeah, end of the video. Is it?
Probably you have a poor bandwidth connection, poor network connection. Unfortunately, nowadays we have this challenge, new challenge.
Yes, see, but now is a video. I think because I'll tell you, till yesterday I have been hosting a lot of these webinars. There was no issue at all.
Now we can hear you.
Okay, great. So do I have to repeat the agenda? Were you able to?
Yeah, because we didn't hear you.
I think that was only towards the end, Arpita, just the last few sentences.
Okay, so I had this question. I don't know whether you could hear that. Is there a particular format that towards the end, last 10 minutes would be for question and answer? Or
Yes,
it can be, generally what I do is I pause as I go through and then I ask for questions.
So we leave it to your because you are teaching us effective communication. I think we leave it to you.
Okay.
Arpita.
I think in between, pauses might be required for welcoming the questions.
Sure.
So we will do that.
Thank you.
All right. Okay. I think now it's more better.
Yes, we can hear you clearly.
Okay. Great. Okay. So moving on. These are the 2 models that I'm going to discuss today. So we are aware that, in a communication process, there is a sender and there is a receiver, right? But what is the feedback mechanism that also has to work in between? Because sometimes we have to switch gear. Okay, a sender can also become the receiver. The receiver can also become the sender, right? In this particular model of transactional model of communication, that's what happens, that we sometimes change our role. Okay. So likewise, now at this current moment, I'm the sender, right? Now, when you will be required or requested to share your perspective or share your experience, then you become the sender for all of us. And I, at one point when I was a sender, I become the receiver, right? So that's the transactional model. It's very simple. Okay, so now currently, right now, I am just sharing my story with you, okay, which is a one-way communication. Okay, but when we start the engagement process, when we start the interaction, it becomes a two-way communication. So at this juncture, it's one to many, right? We have actually 35 participants on the other side, and there is just one sender. So it can be one to many communication, but when I'm addressing a personal query or a professional query of one individual, it becomes one-on-one communication. So communication can be one to many, it can be many to one. So when you are using the chat box, right? I saw the good morning messages coming in, right, from all of you. So that is again many to one. Okay, if in case you are sending it to the speaker, then what happens? It becomes many to one. So one to many, one to one, and many to one communication happens this way, right? Now in a digital platform that we are using, this is these features like chat box and all we are using, okay, to ensure many to one communication, one to one communication, even the audio that we are using, that is one to many communication, okay. But what is missing in this particular scenario is the body language. Okay, if you see, when we do the video conferencing, if the video is on, generally we will see that, you know, we are able to see the other person, his or her facial expressions, or you know, the eye contact and all of that. But given that, you know, we sometimes have this poor connection, we are not able to see the person who is speaking. Okay, so the body language piece is sometimes not visible. The same thing happens when you are having a telephonic conversation, right? In a telephonic conversation, you will only hear the words being told. You will also hear the tone, the pitch, the you know, certain expressions also. Now you must be wondering, how come expressions? We are not able to see expressions, but why always seeing? You can always feel. A person, if he or she is happy on the phone, he will be exuberant. His voice will be just, you know, wow. I mean, he will be like full of energy in the voice, right? So that's how you will be able to gauge the person is sad on the other side by the way, the words, the tone, the pitch, the way he expresses his sentences. Okay, so that is all being reflected to how he or she speaks, even on the telephone, right? So that's how the communication happens. Okay, so you get to understand the message in a broader sense. You understand the state of mind also, but you have to really listen hard to understand the state of mind. You also will be understanding the context. Okay, the simple context, the message, what is being conveyed, right? So that's a process of communication. Okay, and here we have presented two models. One is the transactional model of communication. As I mentioned, there is one to many, many to one, one to one. Feedback mechanism is also in place. And in the SMCR model, which is the Berlioz model, we have the sender, we have the message being conveyed, we have the channel of communication. In this example of digital or virtual mode of communication, our channel of communication is nothing but we are using today's Zoom platform, right? Likewise, we have WebEx, Microsoft Teams, and so on and so forth. If in case we are in a classroom setup, then the channel of communication is face-to-face communication, right? So it differs now depending on the situation. So the channel of communication, again, you know, you receive information through emails as well, right? You can be in different topographies. You can be in the same office. You receive message through phone. You receive message through newspaper bulletins, right? You receive message through books, right? There are so many channels of communication that works. Sometimes you might have noticed that, when there was this lockdown, people were not allowed to come out of the houses, or, they were not allowed to go out to the markets and all that. It was the police force or the government, local government, they came out and they were announcing through mic, so that is again a channel of communication to reaching out to people. So you can adapt different channels of communication depending on the situation, circumstance, the message that you want to communicate. The messages can be two types, right? It can be something like, as I said, that when in a situation it's a lockdown and you are not allowed to come out and exchange pieces of information, it would be one-way communication from the government. Okay, these are the precautions that you might want to take when you are at home: maintain social distancing, wear a mask, wear gloves, etc., etc. Right? It's more instructional way of passing on the information through a medium. Okay, so that's the channel. You have to wisely choose the channel which will become more effective. I will reiterate, you will have to wisely choose the channel to make the communication, the transactional model of communication, more effective. Okay, and then you have the receiver. Of course, receiver will change roles. He can also be a sender. Sender will change roles. He can also be a receiver. That's how we have the transactional model of communication. Okay, so I have mentioned here. Let me just switch on the annotation for you. Okay. So if you see here, this is S for sender, M for message, C for channel, and R for receiver. So of course, the sender should have a positive attitude to share the information. Okay. The receiver should have the positive attitude to listen to it carefully, encode, decode, comprehend, interpret in the right scheme of things. Okay, if the attitude in both the ways it is positive, communication becomes more effective. Okay, now we will see what are the barriers of communication that works, for which we see that most of the time, 70% of the times, the messages get distorted. Okay. There are many reasons. There are many reasons. Okay, we can have personal prejudices, we can have personal biases, because of which we are filtering the messages, because of which we don't listen. We obstruct ourselves from listening. So there are different reasons which come in the way, okay, as a obstacle to make the communication effective. Okay, insecurity also comes in between. The sender's attitude of not sharing the complete information could be that the sender is also insecure. So there are so many barriers of communication we will see, right? The knowledge. The sender needs to be a subject matter expert for the topic or the model or the module that he or she is handling or discussing about, right? So if at any point of time there is a fizzling out, right? If at any point of time there is a falling apart, okay, immediately the receivers are smart, right? So the receivers will be immediately able to gauge that, and that again will create a problem in receiving and filtering of information, right? So we have also seen that. So falling apart, fizzling out while you are transferring information, or you are becoming manipulative while sharing your knowledge or experience, that gives a indication to the receiver that, okay, I think, there is nothing much to gain, right? There is no value add. Okay. So that again creates a barrier in, in accepting what is being shared. Okay. So the next one is the social system. The social system also sometimes works in the favor, sometimes does not work in the favor of the communication. Okay. Of course, the culture. So these are common even in the receiver end, for the reason that receiver is also changing the role sometime and becoming a sender. So that's why it is common. Okay, now the message. When I say message, whether it's in the form of a conference, you are a speaker, or if you are sending an email, or if you are sending, like the way I give example that the police inspector or the government officials are sending out communication through a mic, right, to the residents. So any form of messaging, okay, it requires a structure. And the structure is very simple. The structure is 3T. What is this 3T? 3T is nothing but tell what you want to tell. That is a first T. Tell what you want to tell. Second T is just tell it. Tell it. Okay. And the third one is tell what you have just told, which is more about the summary and the call for action. Okay, this last T is summary, summarizing, okay, in 1 or 2 sentences and keeping a call for action. Okay, so that is very important. Call for action is very important, right? You want an action to be done thereafter. So 3 T's, this is the structure of good messaging. Whether you are writing an email, whether you are having a meeting, whether you are the speaker for any platform. So the structure is 3T. Have a call for action towards the end. Okay. And of course, when the second piece of telling it, right, that out of the 3T's which I mentioned, the second was tell it, right? So when you are telling it, you have to ensure that you are putting the most important information on the top. The attention span of people is very less. Okay, the attention span of people is very less. Okay, and that's the reason you have to ensure that you are having a focused message, not to beat around the bush, and you are making it crisp, you are making it legible, you are making it very simple. Okay, do not use jargons for the reason that you are sometimes not sure of who the other side is, right? So when I say the other side, your audience, okay? So you sometimes are not sure who the audience is. So keep the message simple, easy to interpret, easy to comprehend, easy to understand, and give key highlights. Wherever it is necessary to describe, you please describe. Otherwise, keep it short and simple. Keep it short and simple, okay? And include key elements, okay? Rather than, as I said, beating around the bush, okay? And keep it simple and short, okay? So the C is the channel: listening, hearing, seeing, feeling, touching, tasting. These are all the channels which you can use. The purpose would be listening, hearing, seeing, feeling, touching, and tasting. R is the receiver, which I just mentioned. Now moving on. This, I just gave you this model of communication. The same thing is mentioned here. The sender will encode the message, send it through a channel. The channel can have barriers. We will discuss about that, right? Some of which I discussed already, that insecurity can come in, biases, prejudices, semantic errors, right? Semantic mapping is not happening properly. That's why there is a fizzling out. So there can be different barriers. We will see that, okay? And then through the channel, it gets decoded and the recipient receives the information. Then the feedback process works like this. Thus, he becomes the sender. He encodes the information through the channel, overcoming the barriers. The idea is to overcome barriers, right? To make the communication process more effective, and decode, and then the sender receives the information. Okay, so this is the communication process. Now, let me tell you a story. Okay, now why I'm telling this story? Because there would be an activity associated with it. Okay, so the story that I'm going to narrate now, as a sender, you will encode the information, process it in your mind, Okay. This is the mode of communication that we are having. Okay. That is through Zoom. Okay. Now, initially we had certain barriers like, I was not audible, but we fixed it. So the technical issue is somewhat resolved. Okay. Now, again, you will be decoding what I'm saying and you will be the recipient. So let's see if the active listening is happening. Okay. So when I say active listening, what I say is what you will receive exactly. Okay. If I say A, B, C, D, E to you, okay, you will receive it as A, B, C, D, E and not D, B, A, C, G. Okay. So you might add your own perspective sometimes, but it was, you might be recalling that sometimes it was never been communicated by the sender. This also happens. Or it can also be like, A, B, C is completely missing, D, E is there, and G, H, I has come. So this is what happens, when the active listening does not work. Okay. So there's a fizzling out. We sometimes procrastinate. So when I say procrastinate, we have been told something, the final product that has come out is a different one. Okay, because in between we have not taken that initiative to go back and ask and clarify. Okay, so there was a delay. Procrastination is nothing but delaying for whatever reason. Okay, so the final product that we have a couple of activities around it. You must be thinking, what is the product that we are going to make now? Let's see. Okay, so this is one product. Okay, so a story that I'm going to tell. Okay, let's see how you will be receiving it towards the end, and also how the reproduction of that product will be like from your end. Okay, so this is what we are going to see, how much active listening will happen, because towards the end you are going to reproduce this story to me. Okay, I will of course tell you how better we can make the reproduction of the story or the product more effective, but as we go on, okay, as we move forward. So hear me out. The story is of an old bookstore, right? I've mentioned the title also. The story is of an old bookstore. Okay, so I went to a bookstore last Saturday. The bookstore is pretty old. It's open all days, 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. except Sundays. But the collection of the books is great. It's illuminating. As you enter the bookstore the first time, you will feel that the stack of books will fall on you. But it's really well kept. No incident I've heard till now of the books falling on people. The person in the counter is a learned person, and he always ensures that the stock of books are relevant, trendy, updated, and interesting. The buyers, visitors enjoy scanning the book in the store and then buying the books from the store. So this is about the old bookstore story that I have shared with you. So we will have a reproduction. Let's see if you would be able to reproduce the product as is, a little bit ahead from now. Okay, we will pause and we will see. Okay. I would like you to unmute, and one by one that time you can speak. So probably we will hear out from, because it will be time consuming, all 40 I can't hear. Maybe I will just pick names. So all of you have to remember what has been conveyed, right? So I will pick names and then we will hear it from you. Okay, all right. So let's move forward. these are the key elements of success. So before I go here, this was a small snapshot which I gave, okay, just to explain how the complete transactional model of communication is working, even the Berlioz model. Okay, so you have a sender who is saying that your food smells delicious, okay, and the receiver replied saying a thanks. But one element which I'll talk about here is reading between the lines. Sometimes we don't read between the lines. Okay, it's very essential that there is no deeper intent. It's just been said in the plain context. But sometimes certain phrases carry deeper meaning. Okay, so the receiver is understanding that maybe she wants to try a bite. Okay, but since the receiver is not so sure about it, that's the reason the receiver is not spilling out the beans. Okay, is not saying like the way he said thanks, he is not saying. Okay, but it is running in his mind. So this is something called reading between the lines, which sometimes may be correct depending on the experience that you have gone through. The kinds of experiences that you have gone through, that can give you an indication of what you are thinking is right or wrong. Okay, so that is reading between the lines. Okay, so moving on, key elements of success. Okay, now I'll pause for some time in case you have any questions. Are there any questions in the chat box, Irfana?
No, there are no questions.
Okay, if there are questions, you can unmute and you can go one-on-one. Otherwise, I'll move on.
Yes, if anybody has questions, please do ask now.
I think it may be better for us to move on, Arpita.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
All right, okay. You can use the chat box. Otherwise, all of you, we can have the questions. And when we have breaks in between, we can address that.
Yes.
Okay, all right. So the key elements of successful communication. Okay, I was giving you example that in telephone communication, or when you are not able to see the sender, sometimes what happens is you are not able to see the body language. A lot of communication happens if you see the percentage distribution. It is 7, 38, 55, right? So 55% is through the body language. 7% is through the words. This is through a research. And the tone of the voice. Okay, as I said, expressing yourself on telephone, it's not just the words. It also shows whether you are happy, whether you are sad, by the pitch, by the mellow, by the tone, the inflections that are getting reflected via what you are saying, right? So the energy, all of it will be showcased as you speak. Okay, so this is the distribution. Now we find this distribution more relevant for a situation where it's a classroom kind of setup, or when you are meeting the people face to face. Okay, but when it's a telephonic conversation, this 55% element is not available. So 45% that we have here, it increases because the summation got to be 100, right? So now the distribution in the classroom setup or face-to-face setup is 55 and 45. But when this becomes 1% or maybe 0 sometimes, then this 100% gets distributed over here. Okay, so what matters more that time is the words. It may be 55-45 here, or maybe 45-55 here, okay, depending on the circumstances and the situation. Okay, so as it is said, the words which are already been spelt out can never be rolled back, right? There's a very popular say that words once told can never be withdrawn, right? It is already been told, heard by people all around, right? So we have to be very careful in choosing the words. We have to be wisely using the phrases, okay, so that it gives out the right message in the right format, and it does not hurt anybody's sentiments. Okay, so empathy works a lot when you are not able to get this particular element across. Okay, so empathetic listening as well as empathetic saying. Okay, so both means a lot when this piece is not there. Through the process of words, empathy, through the process of pace, pitch, tone, you know, it needs to be projected. Okay. So these are the barriers affecting communication, effective communication. I've mentioned here as talking and not listening. What does it mean? See, God has given 2 ears and 1 mouthpiece, right? For us to listen more, so it's double, okay? And talk appropriately as may be needed, okay? But then what happens is we are always eager and we are always jumping. Sorry? Somebody, I think, said, would you want to mute in case if there is?
Yeah, I think somebody is not muted and they're talking internally and it came out.
Okay, all right.
Request you to please mute yourself. I don't know who that is.
Okay.
It's okay, go ahead.
Yeah, so talking when it is needed. So we need to listen more to respond appropriately. Okay, we sometimes jump to tell what we want to say. Okay, and in the process, what happens is we are inappropriately sharing the message. We are inappropriately responding. We are not responding to what is required. Okay, so listen to the speaker till he or she finishes, and thereafter, immediately be the first one. Be the first one, I would say, to say, to share, to respond. Okay, and when I say respond, it's being in a positive sense, not react. Okay, so reaction also shows through the process of communication, because reaction is an action which is a portrayal of a behavior, positive or a negative behavior. Okay, it is reflected through the behavior and action. Okay, so if it is a reaction, it spills out through the process of communication. Okay, so talking less, listening more, and then be the first one to speak. Okay, so listening can be affected by personal biases and prejudices. As I mentioned, it can be religion, racial, cultural, gender, age related. So different kinds of biases, and because of which we obstruct ourselves from listening properly. Also filter, consciously filter. We become very choosy in what we want to listen. Okay, so the first and foremost, I have got this lesson from a lot of my mentors. First and foremost, which I will share with you as well, is any platform that you are consciously going to learn. As we go, we come with a lot of baggage, right? We know it all. Okay, this is generally the tendency. We know it all, okay? But having said this, maybe, definitely, we know a lot, yes, but when we have consciously decided to come and, you know, learn, it may be in a meeting, it may be in a training room, it may be in a gathering where, you know, there is a exchange of information which is happening. There is also a learning which is happening over there, right? So in a situation like this, where you are consciously deciding to go, the first thing is we have to keep aside the baggage. We have to unlearn to learn and relearn. Otherwise, with the biases that we come in, that we know it all, we will not learn properly. Okay, we will start making judgments. Judgment also comes in the barriers. Okay, so we need to unlearn to relearn and learn and then we can make a choice. Okay, what is applicable, not applicable. Then later on we can make a choice. Once the completion of a program got over, after that, you will find the right application, and then accordingly, you will do the trial and error, learn from that, and the learning continues throughout life. Okay, so listening can be affected by all of this. Okay, as I mentioned here, filtering, emotional distraction. Yeah, emotional distraction. You might have come for the meeting, and you might be thinking, oh, I forgot to pay the bills. Oh, I have to call the plumber. So all this is running in the mind. So a lot of these distractions, because of which you are not concentrating. So active listening is missing. Sometimes it's also the overload of information. You are loaded with information. That's the reason you have started now filtering, preoccupied, okay, with something else. And that's why you are not listening. Multitasking can also affect listening, because you cannot concentrate on two things. We are not superhuman beings. Two important things you cannot concentrate at the same time. So you are trying to listen something which is very, very important. At the same time, you are designing a PCB board. Okay, so if it's just a one word or one line, it's okay, depending on the nature. Okay, but if the active listening has to be there for 1 hour at a stretch, and during that same time of 9 to 10, you are also designing a PCB board. And also there is a webinar, which is a very important webinar, which is going on, right? So it's an overlapping in terms of the time. Will you be able to listen properly to the entire webinar, understand, learn? Not to the entirety. When we were talking about the communication process, we mentioned about one thing, that the sender is sending A, B, C, D, E. The ideal process of communication should be the receiver is also receiving it as A, B, C, D, E. Now, I won't say that if I have told that story of bookstore, how the first sentence and the last sentence, what I said, and including the remaining sentences that I had in between, exactly you should be producing that. No, communication is not that. You should be able to give me the crux without distorting it. As I said, you are not bringing in XYZ into A, B, C, D, E. And you are also not leaving out B, C, D, right? So the elements have to be there. So the crux is important. You can then restructure in your own language, in your own way, and reproduce it without missing on important bits and pieces of information that was being conveyed. That is what is the effective communication. Okay, I'm not saying that you have to follow the same verbatim as I said. You can change it, but please, you have to take care that you are not changing the context. You're not changing the story entirely. You are not missing out the elements mentioned in the story. Okay, so the elements have to be intact. Okay, so that's what is effective communication and active listening. Not reading between the lines. I gave an example. Attitudinal differences, procrastination, lack of expertise in knowledge, jumping to conclusions, demographic differences. Yeah, so you are representing different locations, cultural differences, all this come in between. Lack of perspective or common interest, right? Position, seniority, fear. That's why we are sometimes not sharing what we know. Okay, so because of that fear factor, we are not able to speak out. Okay, speaking out, important, right? Ambiguity, semantic, grammatical errors. This is sure, people will get turned out, because if there are spelling mistakes, you are, the names of the people, and you are making mistakes in the names, or there are full of grammatical errors. Okay, so all of that, a sure no. It will turn off people. Okay, it will really turn off people. Multitasking, that's why you're not able to actively listen. Lack of clarity, the message, I said, right? 3 T's, there's a structure. The message itself is very disorganized. There is no logical flow. Now you must be knowing about the flow chart concept. In a flow chart, what happens? There is a logical flow, right? You will have some blocks, you will have the arrows. yes, no, and it will go to a different box. So there's a logical sequence. In the messaging also, there should be a logical sequence. Okay, so if the logical sequence is missing, then it's a very disorganized message. And of course, the ego, because of this, we sometimes don't listen. Okay, so I'll come to this later on. Now, this is a small video. Let me just. Sorry.
Hey, it's Phil from PhilJava.com, and today we're talking about multitasking. Has anyone ever told you that they expect 110% from you? It's a joke now, right? I mean, if you're giving 100%, then you're all the way in, so how can you give more? But seriously, there really has been a lot of research on multitasking, and researchers have discovered that we really can multitask. How about that? I mean, I really didn't know. But wait, when we try to do more than one task at a time, what's really happening is we're mentally going back and forth between those tasks, even if it's very rapid. I mean, switching back and forth between tasks can be, well, exhausting. Actually, the word multitasking comes from computer language. It was said that computers were very good at multitasking, but the truth of the matter is, computer processors can only perform one task at a time. It's just that they're going back and forth between the tasks really, really fast, and it just seems like your computer is doing all.
So I would pause here. This is about the multitasking piece, that we cannot really focus on everything at the same time, because the quality will decline. The quality for the tasks at hand will completely decline. Okay, so let me just go back to the screen. Okay. So are you listening while you are working on something else? Okay, so multitasking does not give productivity increase. Okay, because we cannot really give 200% ensuring the same quality. Okay, so depends on the nature of the task at hand, right? Now, what does it mean? If suppose you have, let me bring in some crude examples. Okay, very crude examples. You suppose are regularly cooking a particular dish, you know. At the same time, you are receiving a very important call, and the call is not a short call. Okay. Now, given these two tasks in hand, okay, since you are cooking this particular dish regularly, it's become kind of part of your system, and you don't really have to think much. Okay, you are just doing it. It's a very mechanical process. But the important call is something which you are, you know, the call has come and it's something which is very new, and you have to think through it. You have to address accordingly. You have to respond accordingly. So one hand, you are having something which is a mechanical job or task at hand, which is that regular cooking, that regular dish that you are cooking. And the other one, which requires a lot of thinking and appropriate response. Okay, so still you can juggle. Still, I would say you can effectively juggle. Okay, but in a situation, that important call remains in your one hand, and on the other hand, instead of that mechanical, you know, regular cooking work that you had been doing, cooking the same dish every day, you have decided that you want to cook a new recipe. Now, when you want to have a new dish in hand, okay, and at the same time, on the other hand, you have an important call, which is not just a quick call. Okay, it will take some time. Okay, that time you will make a disaster, for the reason that you have to think how to, you know, shape up that new recipe. At the same time, you have to think what has been told and appropriately respond, right? So your mind will not be able to focus. And even though you are trying hard to do that, you will see something somewhere is fizzling out, either for one task or both the task. Okay, so that's what I mean by the nature of task at hand. You have to take a wise decision as to what kind of task is there in your hand, and will you be able to consciously make, you will be able to do a justice to the tasks. Okay, so that's very important before you start taking up on, start actioning on any task, right? So focus on one important task at a time. You saw the video as well. Okay, so the video says that a computer works on binary 1 and 0, right? So even our mind, okay, even though it's a superhuman intelligence, but still at that millisecond or seconds or minute, you know, two important tasks we cannot focus well because it will make us exhausting. We saw that, you know, it will make us drained out completely. Okay, so exhausting is something which you will see as a chronic which gets developed over a period of time. Initially you will enjoy, you will not realize, but later on you will see that you are having attention span deficiency. You will have that, you know, this kinds of chronic, warnings which will come up, that you are getting exhausted, or probably you are, you are too much distracting between work, you know, without, it's become part of your subconscious because you have been juggling a lot between tasks. So consciously take up the tasks and do justice. Okay, so depending on the nature as well, you know, the nature of the task. It declines the quality, chronic distraction over a period of time, procrastination and misplaced priorities, and all of this eventually crops in. Okay, so let's do one activity. Don't forget about the story of the old bookstore. I will come back to it. Okay, so hold on. And this is a different activity that we have. And this activity is, you're able to see my screen, right?
Yes, Arpita, we are able to see.
Okay, I just thought for a second whether I projected it or not. Okay, great. So activity 1 is, you have to follow the instructions. You have to follow the instructions. Okay. Have a pen and paper. Have a pen and paper in front of you. That is the first one. Okay, so have a pen and paper in front of you. I'm sure that you have it now. Plain white sheet in front of you and a pen. Okay. Second, during this activity, no one will ask questions. During this activity, no one will ask question. Okay. The next instruction is make the drawing darker. So if I say you to draw something, make the drawing darker so that it's visible on the camera. Now, why camera? Because I might ask you to show the drawing on the camera screen. Okay. So listen to what I say and follow what I say. Okay. So here you go. You have a piece of paper in hand, I know, and a pen also with you. So let's proceed. Okay. Draw 2 circles. Draw 2 circles. Next, draw 1 triangle. Draw 1 triangle. Third, again draw 1 triangle. So I'll repeat once more what I said. Draw 2 circles. Next, I said draw 1 triangle. Next, I said draw 1 more triangle. This is all I had to say. So now I will ask you to show us your product, final product. You can probably one by one, you can go on video, come on video, and just make the drawings darker, okay, so that everyone can see. Okay, so your name, please. Yeah, I can see one design. I think Siva, okay. It's not very clear. Siva, right? I can't see the design at all. Okay, I can't see the design at all. Can you make it a little darker, please? Mr. Anand, can you show the product? Okay. What about others? Irfana, okay, wonderful. Bobby, okay, okay, it's coming up, fine. Others? Okay. Mohandas, okay, yeah, okay. What about others? We have 44 participants.
Tejasvi is very innovative.
Tejasvi, where are you?
Yeah, I'm right here.
Okay, okay, okay.
Circles, one on top of the other, and the triangles are within that 2 triangles.
Okay, okay, okay. So Gajanana, okay, Gajanana. Right. Okay. So I've seen Prashant. Okay. So wonderful. Thank you all for your effort in building this particular product. Okay. Now, if I am suppose the customer, okay, and I have given you this requirement to you, right? This draw 2 circles, draw 1 triangle, and again draw 1 more triangle, right? This is the requirement which I gave to you. Okay, now each one of you came up with your own version of the products. Wonderful, very good effort, very good effort, I must say. But what I wanted was this. Let me just show you. Unmute, 1 minute. Are you able to see the screen?
Yes.
Yes, we are able to see. Yes.
Yes?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so this is what the client wanted as a product. Okay. Many of you, whatever I have seen, I think Mr. Prashant, can you show it once more? Mr. Gajanana. Mr. Gajanana, are you there? I can't, okay, okay, right. Mr. Mohandas also I saw, yeah. If you can show it once more, the product. Okay, wonderful, wonderful. You are very close. You were very close. Others also very good effort, wonderful effort. Okay, but can you tell me now, what was missing?
More instructions, more specifications.
Exactly. So there was this clarity piece which was missing. You did not get a clarity of what should be the measurement of the circle. What is the position of my second triangle? See, if you see the third triangle, it is an inverted triangle. Okay, some of you got it. Right. I don't know how. I would want to hear from you. Did you do this particular activity before?
Yeah.
Okay, so if you have done this, then I have another activity for you. I see, as a communicator, you know, we have to be ready with plan A, plan B. Now, in this situation, one person out of all, you know, 37 that we have, one person is aware of this particular activity, even though it's the percentage. If you see, you know, if you do a percentage calculation, it is minimum 0.0% something. Okay, but you never know, right? So we should always have a plan B in place. Okay, so we'll have another activity. So what was missing in this particular communication was there was no specification. It was not descriptive as it should be. Okay, and it was not outcome focused. I did not tell you, okay, this is a replica that you have to get. This is the kind of product that we are looking at, you know, or I did not give you any kind of example or any kind of you know, prototype. I did not show to you, okay, this is something near to it that we want. Okay, so I did not give you a clear message. I just gave you some random, you know, so 2 circles, 1 triangle and 1 triangle. So in a communication, we have to be clear, we have to be specific, we have to be descriptive wherever required. Okay, and sometimes we cascade information half. We cascade half information. Okay, I'll switch off the video. Again, I'm receiving a message. We sometimes receive half information, and that's the reason we don't get near to what is desired. Okay, so cascading information needs to be in entirety, unless there is some confidential things that you want to keep aside. Okay, but otherwise the rest of the things have to be cascaded, right? Now, when I'm talking about the next activity, okay, so the next activity, again, there would be a couple of instructions. Okay, hear me out, the instructions. Listen and follow what I say. Okay, listen and follow what I say, right? Take a sheet of paper. Take a sheet of paper in front of you. Now, while you do this activity, the rest of it, you have to close your eyes. With your eyes open, you have taken a sheet of paper, okay, in front of you now. Okay, keep it handy with you. Now you close your eyes. Now you are closing your eyes to do the rest of the activity. I trust you. I can't see all of you because the video is off for most of you, but I trust you. Okay, so for the rest of the activities, you are closing your eyes. Fold your A4 sheet of paper in half. Fold your A4 sheet paper in half. Next, tear off the upper right hand corner. Tear off the upper right hand corner. Next, fold your paper in half again. Fold your paper in half again. Next, tear off the lower right hand corner. Tear off the lower right hand corner. Once you are done with this, now you can open your eyes. Look at your final product and let's compare it now with the other team members as well. So you can again start your video and you can show what the final product looks like. You open that entire sheet here. Okay, so Prashant, Sivya, okay. Tejasvi, you open the entire sheet, all the entire, you open up the sheet. So each one of us are getting different stuff. Some similar, some different. Okay. So now, what was missing here? It's very straightforward. I mentioned that A4 sheet you have to take, you have to fold it into half, you have to tear the right hand side corner. So what was missing? Can anybody tell? Why didn't we get closer to the final product?
How to fold was missing.
I'm sorry, come back again.
How to fold, from which side to which side we have to fold the paper.
Excellent, excellent. Next. See, let me show you the final product, what I was expecting. Some of you are closer to it, while some were, you tried, definitely. It's a very good effort, okay? So which side we have to fold, that was missing. Anything else? Anything else? A very important information, a very important piece you have to tell now. This is very, very important. While I was saying the instructions for the first activity, it was different. Do you remember that? The first activity, there was something which was different. The instruction which I gave. What was that difference? Which I did not say in the second activity.
First activity was writing, second activity was practical. Practically we are doing.
Okay. Instructions, in the instructions. First activity, I had 3 instructions. Second activity, I had 2 instructions. 1 instruction was not there. Anything? Little more, if you think, you will be able to come out of that, the answer.
We were asked to close our eyes in the second activity.
Yeah.
Okay, but that's part of the activity itself. Instructions, I'm saying instructions.
Specs were definitely missing, madam. Specs were not there. How much to cut and all.
Okay, Mr. Prashant also mentioned the same thing, right? In the first activity, yes, tell me please.
One instruction that while showing we've opened the paper and shown, that instruction was not there.
In the instruction of the first one, I said, follow what I say. Second instruction was, make the drawing darker. The third instruction was, know when to ask question during the activity. In the second activity, this third line was not at all there. So what stopped us from asking question if you were not clear? You get that?
We were biased with the first activity.
So we assumed
Yes.
that let's not ask questions. We will just do whatever has been told. In the second activity, I did not ever mention, don't ask question. You were all free to ask questions. If you did not know which side to fold, how much to tear, you were free to ask questions, but nobody asked questions. So that was the missing piece. So if you had asked questions, so that's the reason, if people who receive information, sometimes they don't ask the relevant questions. And if they don't ask the relevant questions, things fizzle out. We get a different product altogether. If at any point of time, when I said that fold the paper, you should have asked horizontally or vertically. If you had asked which side, I would have told horizontal. All of you would have got the exact final product which I have in hand. Okay, I think there is a communication again, poor communication, it says. Am I audible? Am I audible?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yes, yes.
Okay, great. So moving on. I can hear others speaking.
Somebody
Okay.
hasn't
Who is
muted.
speaking?
Somebody needs to mute their audio.
Thank you. Okay, I think Sanjay Verma has a question. He has raised hand. Sanjay, you can unmute and ask. Sanjay Verma.
Yes, madam.
Yes, please. You have raised your hand. Tell me.
No, just actually by mistake that I raised my hand. Just I wanted to show my that product actually.
Okay, okay, all right, all right. Okay,
Yeah,
okay, no
yeah,
problem. I thought you raised your hand to ask questions, Sanjay.
No. Actually,
It
just
would have been better, you know, everybody would have got a clue that I have to go horizontally or vertically to fold.
Yeah.
Anyways, it's okay. So moving on. Are you able to see the screen?
Yes, we are able to see.
Yes.
Okay, all right, all right. Okay, so these are the semantic barriers. Okay, that I think we are left with 10-15 minutes. Okay, so semantic barriers, you know, generally what happens is words with different meanings, okay, come as semantic barriers. You do not, we sometimes are confused how to apply the same word in different contexts. Okay, now let me give you an example. Suppose if I say the word crane, C-R-A-N-E, crane. Okay. Now, crane, can any of you, one by one, you can unmute and tell me what do you think that crane word can be used for? C-R-A-N-E, crane.
Crane is a bird.
All right. Any others?
JCB crane, madam.
Construction equipment.
That is a construction equipment. Okay, all right.
Construction equipment, yeah.
Yeah. Any other? Okay.
Beetle
If
nut.
not, sorry.
Beetle nut. In the shop we get beetle nut, no crane. Adikepudi.
Okay. So these are the different applications of crane. Now we will see also another application of crane. Now let's frame sentences with each of these words that you said. Okay. Crane as a bird. That bird, what you see flying is a crane. So this is an application of the word crane in a sentence. It's appropriately used. I will go to buy a hazelnut or crane. That is from a store. That's the application of the word. You also mentioned about a machinery, you know, one of you. She had to use a crane to lift the object. So that's the application of the word crane in the sentence, appropriately applied. There is another word meaning to the word crane. It's like maneuvering. Maneuvering. You are making your way into. Okay, in other words. Let me apply this word crane in that sentence, which will help you to understand maneuvering. Okay, application of it. She had to crane her neck to see the movie. She had to crane her neck to see the movie. Now, this is an application wherein she had to make her way. She had to find out the way that she can, you know, see the movie. She had to maneuver her neck to see the movie. So that is the application of crane word in this particular sentence. And this is the meaning. Okay. So she had to crane her neck to see the movie. So this is nothing but one word with different meanings and being appropriately used in sentences. Okay, so sometimes we don't apply the words appropriately, which as a reader or as a receiver of your message, they might get confused. Okay, so we have to make use of the words appropriately. Now, I will give you another example. The word engage, engage. Okay, can you now frame sentence you can go one by one. The word engage, you can use different form of the word. So when I say different form, past tense, present tense, future tense of the same word engage, you can make use of that. Okay, in your own sentence, just form one sentence and tell us with the word engage.
I would like to engage in a conversation with you.
All right. What about others?
My friend got engaged today.
Wonderful. I wish all the best. Okay. Having said that, okay, jokes apart. What about others?
I'm already engaged in attending your conversation.
All right. So isn't the same, I think, meaning what Irfana also mentioned, right? Any other meaning you have?
Gears has to engage to transfer the power properly.
Okay. So here, the application of the word engagement is to collaborate, to connect, to create a nuptial relation with all the sentences that you give, each one of you, right? So this is the application of the word engage in 3 different contexts or 4 different contexts: collaboration, connection, and nuptial connection, that is a bonding, future. Okay, so this is the application of the word engage. Now, if I replace, you remember the sentences what you said, right? Now, if you replace engage with participate, what is the kind of meaning which is coming out? You please tell the same sentence, but replace the word engage with participate. Can you please tell what you said? Irfana, you can go first and then the others.
I would
replace the word engage with participate. Does it hold the same meaning?
I would like to participate in a conversation with you.
Wonderful. So this is having the same meaning with engage. Okay. What about others?
Today I have to participate in the Zoom meeting.
Okay, this is also having the same meaning as engage and participate. Wonderful. One of you said that your friend today is getting engaged, isn't it? So see the application of the word participate. It is not holding good with that sentence. With that particular sentence, even though engage and participate sounded synonymous in terms of meaning for the other sentences. So the application of the words have to be really careful, depending on what you want to send the message. Okay, so the engagement where we are trying to build a nuptial bonding, participation will not be the right word. But when you are saying that today in the Zoom call, I want to engage, I want to participate, one and the same. Okay, so the application of the words is very critical to understand. So these are nothing but semantic barriers. We have to carefully choose the words. We have to be carefully and wisely choose the words. Okay, even in any channel of communication that we are using. Okay, now faulty translation. What does it mean? Faulty translation. Sometimes we will translate exactly native to English. Native, that is if we speak Kannada, if we speak Tamil, if we speak Malayalam. So we sometimes have the habit of translating exactly. So when I say, if you understand Hindi, okay, if I say this particular sentence, मैं घर जाऊंगी अभी, मैं घर जाऊंगी अभी. So if my mother tongue is Hindi, okay, if my mother tongue is Hindi, I will try to translate it first like this. Okay, मैं, I, घर, home, जाऊंगी, will go, abhi, now. Now, how the sentence sounds? Hindi, it sounds perfect. मैं घर जाऊंगी अभी. But English, ditto translation if I do. I, home, will go now. It doesn't make any sense. It really doesn't make any sense. So direct translation we should avoid, number one. Now, how we can correct this particular framing or structuring of the sentence? Okay, so there is something called in English a subject and predicate. Okay, going back to the basics, subject and predicate. Subject will have the main, so I in this sentence is मैं, I. Okay, so I is the subject and the rest of it will be the predicate, generally with the verb and the qualifiers describing the verb. Okay, now in this example, I will rephrase this sentence to I will go home now. It has a meaning. The person who is the receiver will understand what I'm trying to say. Even though if I say that I home will go now, the receiver will still be able to understand, but it will not give a right image of me. How much I know English, it would not give the right image of the brand that you are representing to the outside world. It can be a professional brand, the place that you work, or the brand that you yourself represent. If Arpita, so Arpita is a personal brand and the company that Arpita works for. Okay, so I represent myself, I represent the company as well. Okay, so even though the receiver will understand, I home will go now, but will be confused. Okay, confused in the sense the sender is not well aware of the English constructs of the language. Okay, so in a situation where you are having a client interface role, it's very, very essential that we start from the basics, progress as and when. As I said in the very beginning, the tips which I will share are very easy to follow, very, very easy to follow, but it needs to be practiced religiously. And also, till the time that you are making a progress, I mean, even why you, everybody, even me, continuously we have to learn. Okay, and there is no age to learning. It's a continuous process till the time we are in the world. Okay, so it's a continuous process, right? So having said all this, will go is the verb here, okay, which is a future tense. Home and now are the descriptors. So I'm asking when. Will go is saying now. I'm asking where. Will go is saying home. So that's how the qualifiers or the descriptors work. It will describe the verb. Okay, so will go home, will go now. Okay, so that's part of the predicate. So subject and predicate. Every sentence will have in English subject, predicate. It will have a verb in between, generally the subject and the qualifying words. Qualifying means qualifying the verb. Okay, so subject, verb, and the qualifiers. That's how generally will be the construct. Okay. Next is unclarified assumptions. In the two activities that we did, especially the first activity, okay, there were missing data, insufficient data. In the second one, we assumed that we will not ask questions. So even if whatever we have understood, we will just go with it. So assumptions come in the way of getting an effective outcome. Insufficient data as a communicator, when I say communicator, as a sender, because communicator is both receiving and sending. Okay, so as a sender, when we are sending information, we have to provide sufficient information and data in order that the product is, if not 100% the same, closer to it. So the time you will spend to rectify or to make fine tune, okay, it will be lesser. Okay, so the quality checks, so all those things, it will reduce the cost. So a lot of those cost implications, right, we work on. Okay, so sufficient data, asking questions, asking relevant questions if not clear. All these things are essentials in order to remove all this barrier. This is a part of semantic barrier. Okay, now next is denotation and connotation. What are this? So connotation is nothing but through a word you are expressing feeling. Through a word you are expressing feeling. That is connotation. Okay. Say for example, if I say these three words, all mean same, but these words, some of them will have a positive connotation and some of which will have a negative connotation. Now let's see these three words. Okay, so we have say childlike is one word, childish is another word, and youthful, this is the third word. Okay, so all of these three words mean the same, but if you have heard or if you say to anybody a sentence, if you use the word youthful, it has a positive connotation. It implies that the person is lively, the person is energetic, the person, according to him or her, numbers don't matter. It's all the energy, the youthfulness that should be there till the time a person leaves. It means that it has a positive connotation. But if I say in a sentence you are childlike, this is a childish behavior. So the connotation is somewhat negative because it may sound that you are unhappy about the projection of that particular behavior. So that's why meaning can be same, but the application, again, we have to know how we want to apply. Youthful is more positive. It is taken in a positive sense. Childish, childlike, it is mostly taken in a negative sense. Okay, so understanding the application of the words is important. Now, what is denotation? Denotation is nothing but the exact dictionary meaning. If I say blue, blue means color. If you open a dictionary, if you see the word blue, it will tell you about it's a color. So exact dictionary meaning is nothing but denotation. Now I can bring in a connotation also to the word blue. Okay, how? So connotation, as I said, it's the feeling through a word. So if I say blue, blue has a feeling of sadness. Okay, so the connotation is sadness. It's a feeling. But blue, if you see as a denotation, it is color. So if I say blueberry is a fruit which is blue in color, I have been very explicit. I have already mentioned blue in color. So it's very clear. Now, if I just say blueberry is blue, again, it just means color only. So here the subject is nothing but blueberry. Is the verb, and see the descriptor or the qualifier is the blue. So blueberry is blue. Okay, so that's the denotation. Now, if I want to use the blue word in a sadness or connotation, negative connotation sense, okay, now I have to appropriately use it. Okay, now let me frame a sentence. The climate is so dull, it feels like blue. Okay, so you might be thinking, how can it feel like blue color? Okay, so because of the weather, climate being so dull, gloomy, your feeling is also very dull. You are feeling sad about it. Okay, so that's the underlying meaning. Okay, so the application of the word, the context, what you want to say, it has to fall in line. Okay, so that's connotation and denotation. English is a funny language, but if you learn the techniques, you can enjoy the application, the different kinds of application of the words, and you can definitely enjoy it. Okay, Now jargons, we have to, we have to avoid using jargons as much as possible, because if suppose the receiver has not heard of certain jargons that you are using, it will turn off, the active listening will not happen. Okay. Sometimes there is no scope to ask question. It would be wise, as I said here, right? I mean, instead of assuming, you might just raise your hand and ask question in the appropriate time. Okay. And then you can get the clarification, right? So, but ideally, if you are speaking 10 sentences and each sentences are having 4 jargons, by the end of 10 sentences, you will be having 30 to 40 jargons. And people who are at the listening end or the receiver end, for every jargon, they cannot ask 40 times, they can raise their hand, not possible, right? So avoid jargons, try to use simple language. Commonly used language, okay, that is more easy to receive. Body language synergy, what you say and what your hand movements are, your gestures are, your facial expressions are, it's different. Okay, so it has to be in synchronization, because as I said, 55, 7, 38 formula, right? Now, if you're in a classroom setup, if you are in a training room setup, you are meeting face to face, right? So 7, 38, and 55. Okay, so this has to be in synergy. If anything is more or less not at all existing, then again, it's not effective communication. It has to be in synchronization. If you are saying something, suppose as I said, right? The climate is very dull. It feels like blue. But when you are saying this, since you are not able to see me, I mean, you will, through the process of what I said, you would be able to understand, I'm also not feeling very happy about the climate. But if I was laughing and then telling these sentences, I'm totally in an asynchronous stage, because I'm laughing, but what I say is not what I am expressing. What I said is not what I am expressing. So communication is not to impress, but to express. Communication is not to impress, but to express. Okay, and expressing well. Expressions which are in sanctity, which are in synergy to what you are conveying. Okay, in terms of body language, in terms of words, in terms of message. Now we are back with the task what we started with, right? The old bookstore story. So tell the old bookstore story shared at the beginning, right? Now, I would request you not to again, rephrase with this tip which I shared. Okay, so this is called semantic mapping. Okay, but let me hear one or two before I get into the semantic mapping. Can I hear from one of you or two of you about the story of the old bookstore, which I shared in the morning? Yeah.
If nobody is saying it, I'll say.
Oh, please proceed.
But I'll wait, Arpita, if somebody else wants to say it.
No problem, no problem. I think it's, yeah, let's wait. Yeah. Anybody who wants to try? Don't worry. Don't worry. There is always a way out. I will share the mapping that will help us become, even better in terms of retention. There is nothing wrong, nothing right. Just an attempt will be good. Anybody who wants to attempt? Yeah.
Okay, so shall I say?
Yeah. Yes. Please
Okay.
share.
Okay. So you said you went to an old bookstore, and you said that bookstore was generally open on all days from 9 to 5, except Sunday. You also said that the store had a very good collection of books and very well kept also. And you also said that the book store owner was very well read, and he knew what were the good books in trending at that time, and he stocked them. Yeah, that's it.
Very